On a warm summer afternoon in 2017, in a small, charming house in the suburbs of Salem, Massachusetts, a young family was enjoying some quality time together. It was Sarah and Mark, whose names have been changed, along with their 4-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was a bright and lovable girl, always full of energy. Sarah and Mark were sitting in the living room, chatting and watching Lily play with her toys on the floor. The golden afternoon sun streamed through the window, creating a warm and familiar atmosphere. Their house was quite old, but they loved its antique charm and peacefulness. Lily giggled, her clear voice echoing throughout the room. She was building a castle with colorful wooden blocks. Sarah smiled at her daughter, her heart full of happiness. Their lives were so simple and peaceful. Suddenly, Lily stopped playing. She looked up, her big round eyes staring intently at the large window overlooking the backyard. A strange smile appeared on Lily's innocent face. She softly said, "Friend." Sarah and Mark looked in the direction Lily was looking. They saw nothing unusual in the backyard, just green trees and a wide lawn. Sarah asked her daughter, "Who are you talking to? Lily?" Lily didn't answer. She slowly stood up, still staring out the window, the strange smile still on her lips. She began to walk towards the back door. Sarah felt a little strange. Her daughter usually didn't act like this. She stood up and said, "Lily, where are you going? It's dangerous to go outside alone." But Lily didn't listen to her mother. She ran quickly towards the back door, as if someone was waiting for her there. Sarah and Mark hurried after her. As soon as Lily opened the back door and ran out, Sarah suddenly saw a blurry figure standing right next to her daughter. It was the shape of a small girl, wearing an old white dress, her long black hair covering her face. The ghostly girl was offering Lily something that looked like a small piece of cake. Sarah screamed in terror, "Lily, don't!" She ran quickly outside, but as she got closer, the ghostly girl's figure vanished into thin air. Lily stood alone in the backyard, holding a small piece of dirt in her hand. Sarah rushed to hug her daughter, checking if she was okay. Lily was still smiling, her innocent face showing no sign of fear. But when Sarah looked at Lily's hand, she was horrified to see her daughter holding a lump of mud. And when she looked into Lily's mouth, she was even more horrified to see that mud had been stuffed into the little girl's mouth. Sarah was horrified to see her daughter's mouth full of mud. She couldn't understand what was happening. Who had done this? Who was that ghostly girl? Sarah quickly used her hand to wipe the mud from Lily's mouth. But the mud clung stubbornly and was difficult to wipe away completely. Mark ran over, his face pale as he saw the scene. "What is it, Sarah? What happened to Lily?" he asked in panic. Sarah cried as she spoke. I saw a little girl. Give her something. And then, she had mud in her mouth." Her voice was broken with fear and emotion. Mark was also horrified to hear Sarah's account. He didn't believe in ghosts. But what was happening to his daughter was real. They needed help. In their panic, Sarah and Mark looked around, trying to find someone who could help them. They saw a few neighbors in their yard. Sarah ran over to call them, her voice trembling. "Please, help us. Lily, the baby." The neighbors saw Sarah and Mark's panicked state and quickly ran over. They were also shocked to see Lily with mud all over her face. Sarah and Mark quickly told the neighbors what had happened, including that Sarah had seen the ghostly little girl. Some neighbors seemed skeptical, but they were still willing to help search to see if anyone was nearby. Mark quickly picked Lily up, trying to wipe the mud from the little girl's mouth. Lily remained silent, her big round eyes staring into nothingness. She didn't cry, didn't say anything, just sat still in her father's arms. Sarah and Mark, along with a few neighbors, searched around the backyard area, hoping to find any traces or a suspicious person. They searched in the bushes, under the trees, but found nothing. The atmosphere became tense and frightening. Everyone felt that something was wrong. What was that ghostly little girl that Sarah had seen? And why did Lily have mud in her mouth? After a futile search, Mark decided they had to take Lily to the hospital immediately. He feared that the mud might contain toxins or dangerous bacteria. Sarah held Lily tightly, tears still streaming down her face. She felt helpless and scared. She couldn't protect her daughter from the strange and terrifying things that were happening. Mark and Sarah quickly put Lily in the car and rushed straight to the hospital. On the way, Lily remained silent, showing no reaction. This only increased Sarah and Mark's worry. At the hospital, doctors and nurses quickly admitted Lily. They thoroughly cleaned the mud from her mouth and performed necessary tests to check if she had any infections or poisoning. Sarah and Mark sat in the waiting room, their hearts racing. They were worried about their daughter's health and kept wondering what had happened. Sarah told the doctor in detail about seeing the ghostly little girl. The doctor listened carefully, but he didn't make any comments about the ghostly story. After a while of waiting, a doctor came out and announced the initial test results. The mud in Lily's mouth contained no toxins or dangerous bacteria. Her health seemed normal, and there were no signs of injuries on her body. However, the doctor also said that Lily was still in a state of slight shock. She wasn't talking, and her eyes were still staring into nothingness. The doctor advised Sarah and Mark to observe Lily for another 24 hours at the hospital to make sure everything was okay. Sarah and Mark decided to stay at the hospital with their daughter. They sat beside Lily's bed, holding her hand and trying to talk to get a reaction from her. But Lily remained silent, as if she was in another world. During the night at the hospital, Jessica began to notice more strange behaviors from Lily. She would occasionally giggle to herself, a very soft and cold laugh, similar to the ghostly laughter Sarah had heard at home. Lily also made strange movements. She would bring her hand to her mouth as if trying to chew or scoop something invisible. Her eyes still stared into space, as if seeing something others couldn't. Sarah and Mark were truly frightened. They knew that what was happening to their daughter was not normal. It was related to the ghostly little girl that Sarah had seen. They tried to ask Lily what she had seen or who she had talked to. But Lily didn't answer. She just looked at them with empty eyes and giggled. A nurse came into the room to check on Lily, and she also noticed the little girl's strange behavior. She asked Sarah and Mark if anything had happened before they brought Lily to the hospital. Sarah and Mark hesitated. They didn't know if they should tell the nurse about the ghostly story. Finally, they decided to only tell about Lily running to the backyard and finding her with mud in her mouth. They hid the detail about the ghostly little girl, afraid the nurse would think they were crazy. The next morning, Lily's health had stabilized. She was no longer giggling or making strange movements. However, Lily remained silent and wouldn't talk. This worried Sarah and Mark greatly. They tried everything to get Lily to talk again. They showed her favorite toys, read familiar stories, but Lily still didn't react. When the doctor came to check on Lily, he said that physically, she was perfectly normal. Perhaps she was just in psychological shock after the incident. The doctor advised Sarah and Mark to be patient and give Lily time to recover. Sarah and Mark felt a little disappointed. But they also understood that each child reacts differently after a shock. They decided to take Lily home and take good care of her. As they were preparing to leave the hospital, Lily suddenly raised her hand and pointed in a direction. Sarah and Mark looked where their daughter was pointing. It was a deserted hallway leading to another area of the hospital. Lily spoke softly, her voice very low and weak. "Friend, there." Sarah and Mark looked at each other in astonishment. These were Lily's first words after the shock. And she was talking about a friend. Sarah asked her daughter, "What friend, honey? Where did you see the friend?" Lily didn't answer. She just stared intently down the hallway, her big round eyes still holding a hint of fear. Sarah and Mark felt a sense of unease. Could it be that the ghostly little girl was still following Lily? They quickly took Lily out of the hospital and went home. On the way, they tried to ask Lily more about the friend she had mentioned. But Lily became silent again. When they got home, the atmosphere still held a lingering feeling of coldness and gloom from the afternoon before. Sarah and Mark felt uneasy thinking that the ghostly little girl might come back. They decided they would no longer let Lily play in the backyard alone. They also checked all the doors and windows in the house to make sure everything was securely locked. In the following days, Lily gradually returned to normal. She started talking and playing again, as if nothing had happened. Sarah and Mark felt relieved, but they still couldn't forget what they had witnessed. Sarah still occasionally heard faint giggling in the house, and she still felt like someone was watching her. She knew that the story of the ghostly little girl was not over. After Lily had fully recovered, Sarah and Mark decided to delve deeper into the history of their house. They believed that something related to this house had caused Lily to experience the strange event. They searched for information online, asked the oldest neighbors in the area, and went to the local library. They discovered that their house was very old, built in the 1800s. They also learned about a tragic story that happened in this house in the early 20th century. A family had lived here, and they had a young daughter named Mary. Mary was a beautiful and lovable girl, but she had passed away from a terminal illness when she was only 5 years old. It was rumored that after Mary's death, her spirit still lingered in the house. Many people who had lived here reported strange phenomena, including children's giggling, small footsteps, and objects moving on their own. Sarah and Mark felt a chill when they heard the story about Mary. They thought perhaps the ghostly little girl Sarah had seen was Mary's spirit. And perhaps Mary was trying to befriend Lily, since both were young and lovable girls. But why did Mary stuff mud into Lily's mouth? That was something Sarah and Mark couldn't explain. It didn't seem like the action of a harmless child spirit. They decided they would try to contact Mary's spirit to find out the truth. They contacted Emily, Michael's friend who had the ability to communicate with the other side, and asked for her help. Emily agreed to come to Sarah and Mark's house. She sensed a child's energy in the house, but this energy carried a hint of something dark and sad. Emily explained that sometimes, the spirits of children can be influenced by negative forces around them. Perhaps Mary had been controlled or exploited by some entity. They decided they would perform a small ritual to try to contact Mary and find out what had happened to the little girl. One evening, Emily came to Sarah and Mark's house to perform the contact ritual. They sat in the living room, where Sarah had seen the ghostly little girl. Emily lit candles, burned incense, and began to focus her mind. In the living room, the atmosphere became quiet and somewhat colder. Sarah and Mark felt a sense of anticipation and worry. They hoped to be able to talk to Mary and find out why she had harmed Lily. After a moment of concentration, Emily said softly, "I sense the presence of a child spirit. It's Mary." Sarah and Mark looked at each other. They knew Mary was nearby. Emily said, "Mary, we know you're here. We want to talk to you. We don't mean you any harm." In a moment, a very soft giggle echoed in the room. The laughter sounded sad and lonely. Emily said, "Mary, why did you stuff mud into Lily's mouth?" After a while, a very small and weak child's voice spoke. "Friend, play with me." The voice sounded like it was crying. Sarah felt sympathy for Mary. The little girl probably just wanted someone to play with. Emily said, "Mary, Lily wants to play with you. But you shouldn't harm her. Do you know that mud is dangerous?" The child's voice spoke again. "Don't know." Emily continued, "Mary, you can play with Lily. But you have to promise not to harm her. Do you want Lily to be your friend?" For a moment, there was no answer. Then, the giggling echoed again, this time sounding a little happier. Emily said, "I sense that Mary wants to be friends with Lily. But something else is influencing her." Emily tried to find out if any other entity was influencing Mary. She sensed a negative energy source lurking in the house. Emily explained that Mary might have been exploited or controlled by some evil spirit. That evil spirit might have made Mary harm Lily. They decided to perform another ritual to try to remove that negative force from the house. Emily explained that this ritual would be more dangerous than the contact ritual, as they were facing a strong negative force. She asked Sarah and Mark to prepare themselves for anything that might happen. They began the expulsion ritual in the living room. Emily chanted incantations and used spiritual items to create a protective circle around them. During the ritual, the house began to shake violently. Lights flickered continuously. Objects were thrown everywhere, and terrifying noises echoed from all the rooms. The atmosphere became cold and heavy. Sarah and Mark felt an evil presence resisting their ritual. They saw dark shadows flitting through the house and heard terrifying growls. Emily continued to chant the incantations persistently, her voice echoing and full of power. She knew they had to succeed in this ritual to protect Lily and themselves. Suddenly, a terrifying scream echoed from upstairs. Sarah and Mark startled and looked up the stairs. They saw a large, dark figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was a demon with glowing red eyes and sharp claws. The demon roared in anger and lunged down the stairs. Heading towards them, Emily quickly raised a silver crucifix and recited the final incantations. Light from the crucifix shone brightly directly on the demon. The demon shrieked in pain. Its body began to smoke and disintegrate. In an instant, the demon completely vanished, leaving behind a silent house filled with light. Sarah and Mark breathed a sigh of relief. They had won. Emily slumped to the floor, exhausted. She said that the negative force had been expelled from the house, and Mary had been freed from its control. Sarah and Mark felt grateful to Emily for helping them. They knew they had been lucky to escape a terrible danger. After the evil force was expelled, Sarah and Mark's house returned to its usual peace. No more strange noises, no more cold and gloomy feeling. They knew they were safe. Emily explained that Mary's spirit had been freed from the demon's control and could now find peace. She advised Sarah and Mark to talk to Lily about Mary often, telling her about the special friend she had. Sarah and Mark followed Emily's advice. They told Lily about Mary, a sweet little girl who used to live in this house. They said that Mary loved Lily very much and wanted to be her friend. Lily listened attentively, her eyes lighting up as she heard about her new friend. Lily began to talk about Mary as a real friend. She said that Mary loved to play with her, and they often laughed together. Sarah and Mark understood that Mary was still lingering in the house. But she was no longer dangerous. She was just a child spirit seeking friendship. They decided to accept Mary's presence in the house. They created a small space for Mary in Lily's bedroom, with a few toys and a photo of Mary they had found in the history of the house. Life for Sarah, Mark, and Lily returned to normal. They still lived in the old house, but now they felt more comfortable and safe. They knew they weren't alone. They had an invisible friend by their side, protecting them and sharing joy with them. Sarah, Mark, and Lily's story is a reminder that not all ghosts are scary. Sometimes, they are just lost souls seeking love and understanding. If you enjoyed these true horror stories, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.